Hey guys, what's going on? Luke the Goon here, or Luke Nukem. Uh, I just got back last night from the final show on the Forever Dead and Dirty Tour in Columbus at the Al Rosa Villa. And I went to the Cleveland show, the Dayton show, and that show. So I went to three different shows. And so I kind of feel like maybe I was the one who went to the most shows on that tour. So I figure I'll do a full recap on that show and then show you some of the pickups that I got as well. I'm going to go kind of, I guess you could say, in depth on each show. So this video might be a little long, but, like I said, I think I have a pretty good grasp on this whole tour as a whole, at least what it was in Ohio anyway. Um, as I said, the first show was in Cleveland on November 3rd. And, I went up there early. I was the first one there and kind of just chilling. And I actually saw someone there who was at Wicked Weekends when ICP was in Kent. So I was chilling with them. They also had VIP. We both had VIP at Wicked Weekends. We both had VIP here. So I hung out with them pretty much the whole show. And this show had a decent amount of openers. Uh, the most notables were Cody Manson, who I'd seen at Wicked Weekends too. He's not bad. He's a good opener because there are a lot of openers, and I'll get to that about the Dayton show. There are a lot of openers that are really generic, and like I call them weekend warrior bands. Where all they do is kind of open up, maybe at the same venue over and over again. Sick and Sane were okay, but I think the more I heard of them, the more I was kind of like they were getting a little generic horrorcore for me. And then I guess technically Buckshot was an opener on this show because he wasn't he was billed, so but he killed it. He really made a fan out of me at this show. I was never really a fan of his solo stuff. I like obviously Underground Avengers are dope, but Buckshot was I liked him, but he sounded very samey to me a lot. But at this show, he definitely he killed it for me. He had this really cool kind of prop, and what he had is he had this suitcase on the side of the stage, and he kind of walks over to it, and he opens it up, and this light shoots out of it like Jackie Brown, the Tarantino movie, and he picks this thing up, and it's Jason mask, and the light hits the mask as he's holding it up, and it's so cool. And then he goes into the song Jason Mask, which is probably his best solo song. And then that was pretty much it for the openers. And then the lineup is AXC, Boondocks, Blaze, which was surprising to me and to other people that I talked to, because when this tour first started, I thought it was an AXC tour. And then when I was at the Twisted show, somebody was talking about the Blaze show, and I was I thought AXC was headlining, but Blaze headlined this tour, and they had AXC pretty much first, which I thought was weird, but I think they kind of went seniority with this tour, I guess. But AXC came out, they killed it, but they had a kind of a short set, or I felt like it was a short set. I don't know what it was. And they didn't play the trunk, which I was a little disappointed at. They didn't play the trunk at all on this tour, which I thought was weird, but, Lee's not on that song, so maybe that's a factor. I don't know. I think it would be cool if they, did kind of a re-release of the trunk, only with Lee on it, because there is that verse, not in the music video, but on the album. I don't know who it is that does the verse, but if they could replace that with something that Lee has done, that would be dope. And Boondocks, Boondocks is Boondocks, man. He lit it up. In Cleveland, I'm also, with each of these shows, I'm going to do kind of I don't want to say winner, but who the crowd was mainly there for, or who the crowd really enjoyed. And Boondocks, oddly enough, Boondocks was the one who everybody that was there was going crazy for. And actually, one of the other VIP people that was with me, they came from West Virginia. And he had a Boondocks jersey on. He was really there for Boondocks, which I thought was kind of crazy. And then, of course, headlining was Blaze, and he during his set, he tweaked his knee. I don't even think he tweaked it because I talked to him in Dayton, and he said what happened was he wasn't wearing a knee brace that he had. I guess he had a high school injury, and so his knee just gave out. And when he fell, he kind of did this kind of theatrical like fall back, and they have those like the banners that they put up in the back always, and it was just like on this kind of holder thing, and he fell back and just knocked the whole thing over, kind of like rolled into it. And when he fell, everybody was kind of quiet, and then when he popped back up, everybody just started laughing. But that was that set. But the VIP this time was held a little bit, well, maybe a little bit weird, at least not from what I expected. And what happened was at least not in M&E standards, I guess, because it kind of was handled the same way the psychopathic one was, where we were kind of all standing around together for a while, and then they let us back there right before Buckshot went on. So after all the real openers, and we actually got to go in the green room. And that was really cool, because there was only 4 of us. And so we got to go in the green room. We just hung out in the green room for a while with them, just talked, took our pictures, got our stuff signed, which I'll show at the end with my pickups and stuff. And it was awesome. It was really cool. And it was funny because I was talking with all the guys, and then I kind of turn around to kind of walk back so the other people can kind of get up there. And Buckshot is just chilling, sitting on the couch, like not talking to anybody. And I was just like, oh, shit, what's up, dude? And he's like, oh, sorry, I'm not trying to be antisocial or anything. I was just like, no, dude, that's cool. It was pretty badass. But yeah, okay, so that was the Cleveland show. I'd say Boondocks probably owned that show. AXE was dope, but I felt like their set was a little short. I'll get into like one negative later, because there's only really one negative throughout all these shows. And I'll get in, well, there's a little bit of a Dayton, but I'll get into the big negative at the very end. So, a bunch of time passes, and then I go to the Dayton show. This was only a few days ago, less than a week ago. That was the 23rd, I believe, in Dayton. And I hadn't planned to go to this show, but I have a homie that I met out when I went to the Twisted show, and he was like, man, you should come back for the Odd Body show. So I was like, sure, no problem. So I went out there. It's about 2.5 hour drive. So I went out to Dayton show, had VIP again, and this VIP was really weird, because we're all kind of waiting outside, kind of figuring out what's going to go on. And it's really cold, because it was raining, and it was cold, and we're all kind of freezing, and the doors are supposed to open at 5:30, and it was more like they didn't open until like 6:30. But we're kind of chilling, because at the Cleveland show, we got in early with VIP. And this show, I'm kind of waiting, and I get a text that's like, VIP is going to be after the show, and we've run out of badges, so we'll mail it to you. And I'm like, okay, I didn't really bother me one way or the other. I just thought it was interesting. Plus that they didn't have any badges, I thought that was weird. But it was what it was. And so, we eventually get in, and I regret getting there that early, simply because, one, VIP was, not early entry, and 2, this is the downside of this show, there were a ton of openers, a ton. And that's a criticism that I hear a lot about Odd Bodies, is that they have a ton of openers every single show. It was the same thing at the Twisted show, where there were just so many. And there were only really 2 of them that I would call decent or good. And the first guy was probably the best. He was called Faith King. He probably had the best. He was the most talented out of everybody that was there in the opening. And then there were these 2 guys, Colton Kane and Big Cat. They were okay. They weren't bad either. But like the rest of the openers were either like really weird for the show. There was this kind of group of like, they kind of looked like a bunch of Chads, I don't know how to explain it. The one guy looked like Zach Galifianakis from Hangover, and they were just singing songs about Molly, and like it was really weird. And they had like all these different people, all these like this kind of crowd of people that were with them, that were like, I saw them and I was like, it's kind of a weird crowd for a Juggalo show, and it was because they were there for them. And I think after they went on set, after their set was over, they left. I think everybody that was with them left, so they probably just paid to get on the show and then just left with everybody they knew. But anyway, Buckshot was also on this show, which is weird because Buckshot did not go with them to any of the other dates. He was at Cleveland and he was at Dayton, and that was it. So he opens up, Same thing. He didn't do the Jason mask thing, which I thought was a little disappointing because I was telling a bunch of people there about it, and then he didn't do it, and I was like, man, I think it was because the stage at the Odd Bodies is much smaller than the stage that was at the Odeon. And then AXE come out and they tore the stage up. This was definitely an AXE show. Like it was crazy. It was awesome. It was everything I was expecting. They changed their set a bit, which I think makes sense because because when I saw them in Cleveland, it was like one of the first shows on the tour. And so I think kind of, as they got into their groove, they kind of figured out their set. And, I even talked to Lee about it after the show, and he said they changed some of the transitions and it just felt longer. And I told him, I was like, I definitely like that set a lot better. Yeah, so they tore it up. And then after they were up there, I just kind of moved back. I was just like, all right, moved kind of farther back while Boondocks was on. And then Boondocks in the middle of his set goes, hey, I'm going to bring out my homie. He brings out Buckshot, and they perform a couple of UGA songs. And I was hoping they were going to do that in Cleveland, but they didn't do it for whatever reason. So when they did it in Dayton, I was like, yeah. And then I moved up forward when they started doing the UGA stuff. Obviously, minus Claus, which would have been dope if he showed up too. That would have been crazy. It would have blown the roof off the place. But and then Blaze came out, and this time he had his hype man, which he didn't have in Cleveland, I believe, because Twisted was still on tour with their Everyday is Halloween tour, and that's why he wasn't there. But in Dayton, he was there. So it was pretty much the same exact set for Blaze. He didn't fall over this time. It was all good. And like I said, the VIP this time was after the show, which I actually kind of liked because I got to see the performance, and then I was able to talk to him like, oh man. Like I said, I talked to Lee after the show about their new set and how they extended it. I talked to Blaze about he's working on some new music because he had a bunch of things happen where like he had the Zodiac imprint stuff, then he had the drive-by stuff, and then he was doing singles for Spotify, and and all this different things were going on, and so his concept of his album has slightly changed, and the stuff that he did before for the album it's kind of old now, so he's working on new music. It's coming out. And that was how I found out about when he fell in Cleveland, about the leg brace. That's how I found out about all that stuff too. And I guess I'll mention here that Boondocks is a very reserved dude. Like every time I saw him, he didn't say a whole lot to me. And I mean, I'm not a big Boondocks fan, so I didn't really have a whole lot to talk to him about. But every time I talked to him, he just was kind of like, nah, and I'd be like, yeah, man. Or, you know what I mean? Like, not like dismissive, just kind of like very reserved, which I thought was kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, that show was dope. That was probably, the Dayton show was probably my favorite show because AXE absolutely murdered it, which makes sense because they're kind of from that area. Dayton was kind of like their homecoming show. Yeah, I really enjoyed the Dayton show. It was a sick show. And then, like I said, yesterday I went down to the Columbus show at the Alrosa Villa. It wasn't that far from me. It's like an hour away from where I live. They're doing their eat and greet thing where if you brought 3 cans of food, you got an eat and greet with them. And this wasn't really handled very well. I feel like the venue had no idea what was going on, or they didn't tell their security or whatever, because there were a bunch of issues with it. I brought in my 3 canned goods, and then it really didn't matter. I think I could have gotten the food and everything and done the meet and greet with AXE after the show anyway, because they didn't check wristbands or anything like that. They had Little Caesars, Faygo Moon Mist, and zebra cakes outside that you could go out on their balcony to get. So, I hooked up with all that stuff. And, they also had a bunch of openers too. Not a ton. I think there were 4 total. And there was a guy called Jay Bizarre, and he was probably the best one that they had there. He had a hockey mask, but it was different. I guess I don't know how else to explain it. They had kind of a generic kind of horrorcore group again there. I think that's standard for any Juggalo show you go to. There's always going to be kind of a generic horrorcore group that goes on. And then first was this like punk band that was like, I don't even know if it was kind of like punk, I guess, hardcore, and called Deadweights, I think. And when they were playing, they were pretty good. Like if I would have seen them back when I was in high school, I would have loved it. But it was definitely not the show, I think, for them. Um, and that seems to be another common thing. I don't think in Cleveland they had any band that stuck out as weird, but it is strange to me when there's just these different bands that open. I mean, I guess they're trying to reach a different audience, you know. But yeah, it was kind of strange. Uh, yeah, and then Divine Evanescence came on. I saw them before Twisted at the Everyday's Halloween tour. They're perfectly okay. They're kind of like what I said, like about a Weekend Warrior kind of band. They're good though. I mean, they're decent, you know. Um, Kind of a rock band. They did like a cover and different stuff, so not a whole lot to say about them. You know, and then AXE came out. They tore it up. I will say that the sound in this venue was a little bit weird. I don't know what it was. It was just the sound seemed a bit off, and I didn't notice it at first because like they have like the floor. There's like steps to go down to the floor, and when I was standing back, like up on the kind of balcony area, it sounded fine to me. But when I went down for AXE, I kind of noticed it was a little bit strange. But you know, it wasn't like horrible. They still tore it up. They were still really good. And then after they were done, I went back up on the balcony again for Boondocks. And I forgot to mention this, but Boondocks at the first show in Cleveland had his face painted up. And then in the other two shows, Dayton or Columbus, he didn't have it done at all. So I don't know if he just got tired of doing it or what it was, but he didn't paint his face up after that. And every set is pretty much identical, which, you know, I guess is common for any tour, but every set was identical to what they had done before. Yes, you know, Boondocks came out. People really dug it. And then when Blaze came out, I went back down again. And, you know, Blaze tore it up too. His hype man was there. After they finished their sets, they were like, you know, final show, you know, Boondocks was like shaking everybody's hand. Blaze did the same thing. Yeah, you know, and that was the final show was, you know, that was it. I forgot to mention this too earlier when Jay Bazaar was playing. AXE came out, like they came out from the back to just kind of, you know, meet up with everybody. And they kind of came up and they went kind of where I was standing, and I went up, you know, and I dabbed them up. It was like, Luke, what up? They remembered my name. They remember my name in Dayton too. That was a cool thing. So I just dabbed them all up. Like everybody else is just kind of standing around. I went up to them and was like, what up, what up, what up? It was pretty cool. And you know, they went back and they started taking pictures with everybody. And this is all why Jay Bazaar was on stage. For a little bit, I was like, man, I kind of feel bad for him because now he's got to kind of compete with AXE now. But it was what it was. And then, so let me get back to where I was at. Blaze goes on stage, and so everybody walks back. And this is part of the meet and greet part that like was kind of weird, and where I feel like they didn't know what was going on. At least the security didn't. So we're all standing around waiting for AXE to come out for the meet and greet that was supposed to be after the show. It's right on the flyer. And we're all standing there. This guy's walking around like, hey, get out of here. If you're not buying merch, get out. Get out. If you're not buying merch, get out. And everybody's just standing. Nobody's moving because we all know what's going on. And, you know, he kind of doesn't say anything for a while. Does his rounds again. If you're not buying merch, time to get out. Can't stay here. And we're just standing there. And Rick, who's he's the merch guy, is kind of like hurrying up, packing all his stuff. And then he puts on his book bag and he runs to the back. And, you know, guy's still doing the same thing. Get out, get out. And then Rick comes back out and he's like, they're coming out. They're coming out. And so the guy's kind of got egg on his face because he realizes we're waiting there for the meet and greet. Because he thought the meet and greet was during the show when they came out during the show that I was talking about. So eventually AXE comes back out. They've got these little like promo. I'll show it to you here at the end. They got these little promo shots. And they are signing them all and giving them out to people. I think they said they only had like 40 of them. But from what I gather, everyone got one. I was like fourth in line. So, you know, I got my stuff and, you know, I was out of there. yeah, so, drove home. That was it. And that was the show. So, let me get into my pickups from the show. And I'll start with Cleveland. I guess I'll start saying this, that with the Cleveland show, I, on the Facebook group that I'm in called Congregation of Zool, which you're not a part of, you should be, somebody posted about a jersey that they saw that they were selling. And it was, I'll show it to you. And they were like, what's on the sleeves, what's on the back. And I think Rick commented on it and said there's only one left, and then told them what was on it. So I was like, okay. I didn't know he was the merch guy at the time, so I was like, how does he know there's only one left? So when I went to Cleveland and I looked at it, I was like, oh man. I was like, because there was no size thing, which means there was only one left. I was like, what size is that? And he's like, 2X. And I'm like, because people told me all different sizes to get for jerseys, and that was the first jersey I'd ever bought, so I didn't know what size to get. So I was like, can I try it on? And he's like, yeah. He's like, go ahead. So I tried it, and like when I'm putting a shirt on, sometimes you can tell whether it's gonna fit or not. And at first I was like, ooh, this feels a little bit tight, and then it slid on, and I was like, yeah, it fit so perfect for me. Maybe a little big, but I'd rather have it a little big than a little small. And I was like, can I buy it? He's like, yeah. He's like, I don't have to pack it with me anymore, so go ahead, take it. And I'm like, yes. So I bought it. All right, so let me get it real quick. Okay. Boom. I got a bunch of compliments on this too. Lee was like, man, I'm jealous. And then at I wore it again at the Columbus show, and Joe Black's like, nice. Yeah, see, it's got the LLE, and then the MNE. And then it's got the 3 for, obviously, Lee Carver, Billy Obey, and Joey Black. So, I got that first. And then I kind of was like walking around, and when the show was over, I went back, and this was the shirt I really wanted. The Friday Almighty, right there. This was the shirt, like I saw all their shirts, and I was like, this is the one I definitely want. I thought that one was dope. And then for the VIP, I got my, see if I can get this right. I got this sign. There's Billy Obey, Lee Carver, and Joey Black just puts JB on everything that he signs. So that was everything I got at the Cleveland show, plus the VIP thing, because this is the only show where I actually got it. And I made a mistake on this too, because I put it up there for them to autograph, and as you can see, I got Blaze, Joey Black, and Billy Obey at the bottom, right? So, and I got Boondocks to sign this side, but you also see Blaze there a second time, right? I didn't look at the autograph, and I just saw JB, Billy Obey, and I thought the other one was Lee. I just didn't read it, and I just thought, oh, they all signed the front. And, I thought all 3 of them are going to sign the front. And so I went over to Blaze because I didn't realize he'd already signed it. What's funny is that he said, oh, did I mess it up? And I didn't calculate it or whatever in my head when he said that. And so he signed it again. So now I have Blaze twice and no Lee Carver. Oh, well. So at the Dayton show, this is where I really got a bunch of stuff. I wanted to buy, I kind of regret not doing this now, but I don't really collect CDs that often, but I've kind of come around to it now. And so I wanted to buy Psycho and Head of Horns. Well, I got Head of Horns, but they'd run out of Psycho at that point. And I was like, oh, man. I was like, that sucks. But I got Head of Horns. And then, let's see, I got the Zooligan beanie, which is, I already had the AXE one, so I wanted the Zooligan one. And then I got 2 shirts, which was this one, and it just says Allah Zululu on the back. And then, let's see, I got I think this is the Psycho one. Boom. Psycho. And on the back it's just LLE. And then at this show, I got Church of Zool. Let's see if I get that glare. There we go. Lee Carver, Billy Obey, Joey Black. Sometimes they write AXE, sometimes they don't. I don't know when they decide to do that, when they don't. And then at the final show, all I got, I didn't, like, like I said, I'd already been to 2 shows, so I didn't buy a whole lot, but I got the kind of the Season of the Witch beanie with their faces on it. And then, as I was saying earlier, their little promotional flat that they had signed that they were giving out at the very end if you brought in your canned goods. Yep, so that was it. The Forever Dead and Dirty Tour has now come to an end. They're going to be at Twistmas, and then they also have Axmas coming up. I'm not going to make either one of those shows. I think Twistmas is in Pontiac, and then the Axmas show is like in Boston, the Boston area. And I actually looked. I was like, I wonder if I can make this show. And I was like, no. It's like a 10-hour drive. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. Plus, I'm going to Psychopathic in a couple days, so money-wise, it's not smart. But I will be at Astronomicon 3 next year. They're actually doing a video shoot, and so I moved around my hotel reservations to make it possible for me to be there. So that's going to be dope. You can bet I'm going to do a recap on that. Yeah, so the whole show was dope. Not my one negative that I had of pretty much all of the shows were pretty much this way. Turnout was not very good at any of the shows. Dayton wasn't terrible, but Cleveland was really bad, and Cleveland was probably the worst. And I think the turnout was I think it was partially because they had 3 shows in Ohio that were all fairly close to one another. Like, for example, for me, if I wanted to go to a show, like, because on the weekend or whatever, I'd go to the Cleveland show, you know what I mean? Or the Dayton show, I guess. But, if you didn't have much money and you wanted to just go to one show, you'd choose one show and that's it, So that's part of it. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who do not like MNE, and so I'm sure that was a factor as well. I don't know. It was that was just the one disappointing thing about the whole show. Even like the Cleveland show, like when I first saw it, that was disappointing because it was like, I don't know. I kind of felt bad for them at how kind of sparse the crowd was, But they still rocked it at every show. Like I said, Dayton was much more populated, and then Columbus show was close to what the Dayton show was, I think, and people there. It just was a smaller turnout than I would have liked, especially for bands like that, for groups like that. I'm hoping at Astronomicon Monsters Ball there'll probably be a lot more people there, so that won't be an issue. But yeah, I mean, that was the only negative, and that's, to me, that's not even really, it's not a fault of the show. And again, I don't know what the problem was with the turnout. It was just, maybe it's just because it was kind of close, getting closer to the holidays. I don't know. But yeah. Anyway, the show was dope. I highly recommend you check out, AXE, Boondocks, or Blaze when they're on tour, because they all tear it up. Yeah, and like VIP, I talked about this before when I did my unboxing of my VIP pack. Like, it's awesome. You get to meet the band, talk with all of them, meet the groups, the guys, talk with them, hang out with them. You get your stuff signed. You get all the other stuff that comes with it. It's really dope. So, thank you guys for watching. That was my recap and pickups of the Forever Dead and Dirty Tour. And I hope you guys liked it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys again soon.